Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is a channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. We are coming up to summer, we are coming up to those longer days, we are coming up to that warmer weather, we're coming up to the time where I forget to buy a fan until they're completely out of stock and regret it for the entire season. We are coming up to the summer season and that means it is time to run you guys through my anticipated releases for the next couple of months. Those books that I am really looking forward to, absolutely can't wait, and this time, based on the complete lack of success from my 2022 summer anticipated releases video. I just did an On the Hook to Read the Book video about that just I think a couple days ago, so do go and check that out if you're interested. But based on the lack of success of the books in that video, this time I've been more strategic with my picks. So let's crack right into the books that I am anticipating, the books that I cannot wait to come out this summer. These books aren't in any kind of chronological order, they're just in the order that I noted them in. So first up, we've got Never a Hero by Vanessa Len, which is the sequel to Only a Monster by this author. And this book's coming out on the 29th of August. As for what the series is about, it follows Joan, who, as far as she knows, she's always been a normal person. She's really looking forward to spending the summer with her eccentric family, getting a new job at this beautiful historic house, which is just everything she dreams, and going out on a date with her very attractive co-worker, Nick. But when a Good Samaritan attempt gone wrong sends her tumbling through time, Joan finds out that her family isn't everything she believed them to be. They are monsters. And Nick, this guy she's crushing on, is a famous monster hunter. After a really unfortunate turn of events, Joan finds herself on the run with a guy named Aaron, who is part of a monster family that hates her own, and they're sent hurtling through time trying to run away from Nick, who's this monster hunter that's trying to finish off the rest of the monsters. I really enjoyed the first book in this series. It's a YA fantasy romance series. There's a soulmates romance in there, and there's a bit of a hate to love romance, or enemies to lovers romance, I guess, in there as well. And I love the first book because the characters actually acted like YA characters, and I think that is just so rare to find in YA. Like, they were all over the place and it was great. So cannot wait for the sequel, and I think it's just a duology as well, so I'll be able to smash out a series. Next up, we've got Reckless by Elsie Silver, which is coming out on the 9th of June 2023. I read Heartless by this author, loved it, realized that was the second book in the series, and now I have to go back and read the first, and this one that's coming out next is going to be the third. So I might do a full like reread and read the whole series smash out sort of video at some point when this comes out. Sorry, I'm wrong, this book is number 4, not number 3, so there's even more to read. But as for what this series is about, it's like a series of romance novels that are all tied together, but they're all like companions, so you can read them each individually, but obviously if you read the fourth one, you're going to be spoiled for the previous 3 in terms of the relationships. But book 4 follows Theo Silva, a rowdy bull rider and notorious ladies man, scorching hot trouble wrapped up in a drool-worthy package, and he's looking at me like I might be his next meal. But I'm almost free of my toxic marriage and have sworn off men entirely. So all I see when I look back is temptation served up with a heaping side of heartbreak. The man is hard to trust and even harder to resist. Make that impossible, because Theo is persistent, and no matter how hard I try to freeze him out, he melts my icy exterior and pulls apart my defenses. Over a drink in a small town bar, I blurt out my deepest, darkest secrets. Then I spend the singular hottest night of my life with him. He worships my body, he makes me blush. I come alive beneath his hands. Then I tell him to forget it ever happened. I want simple, and with him it all feels complicated. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, a secret, but that little plus sign is going to make this secret impossible to keep. And that tells me that maybe there's a pregnancy in here somewhere, and I love a surprise pregnancy. I know it's so toxic, but I love it. It's great. Next up, we've got Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This is the third book in the Love Hypothesis series, which is a series of feminist romances. And I love Ali Hazelwood's writing style because it feels kind of like fan fiction, like the good old days of Wattpad. And as for when this book comes out, it's on the 13th of June 2023. As for what it's about, the Goodreads profile says the many lives of theoretical physicist Elsie Hanaway have finally caught up with her. By day, she's an adjunct professor toiling away at grading labs and teaching thermodynamics in the hopes of landing tenure. By other day, Elsie makes up for her non-existent paycheck by offering her services as a fake girlfriend, tapping into her expertly honed people-pleasing skills to embody whichever version of herself the client needs. Honestly, it's a pretty sweet gig, until her carefully constructed Elsieverse comes crashing down, because Jack Smith, the annoyingly attractive and broody older brother of her favorite client, turns out to be the cold-hearted experimental physicist who ruined her mentor's career and undermined the reputation of theorists everywhere. And that same Jack who now sits on the hiring committee at MIT, right between Elsie and her dream job. Elsie is prepared for an all-out war of scholarly sabotage, but Those long penetrating looks, not having to be anything other than her true self when she's with him, will falling into an experimentalist orbit finally tempt her to put her most guarded theories on love into practice. I mean, that just sounds so fun. Next up, we've got Foxglove by Adeline Grace, which is the sequel to Belladonna by Adeline Grace, and that comes out on the 22nd of August 2023. And as for what the first book was about, it follows a girl named Signa, I think her name was, who feels like death kind of follows her everywhere. She believes that she's cursed because basically ever since she was born, every family that she's been placed with, including her own birth family, has died tragically. So Signa makes it to the last family at the illustrious Hawthorne house. There's an eccentric father who sort of whiles away his mourning of the loss of the matriarch of the family by throwing extravagant parties. And then I think there's a son who's just trying to clean up the mess. And then his daughter seems to be getting sick and potentially dying from the same thing that killed the matriarch. So Signa is determined to not let this family turn out like any of the others that she's lived with. And so she teams up with a stable boy in order to figure out if the sickness and potential death of this daughter is tied to what happened to the mother, if it's inflicted by someone else. But I think she soon realizes that she's going to need to call on the assistance of the very thing that she thinks has cursed her all this time, and that is death. I've explained it super horribly, but it was such an amazing read. It was so gothic. It wasn't gothic in terms of like the style of the story, but it was definitely gothic in terms of the setting and the vibe, and I really enjoyed that, plus the romance was amazing. So cannot wait for this one. Next up, we've got Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which comes out on the 20th of June 2023. I've read one other book by this author, and that was The X Talk, and I really enjoyed it, but I haven't picked up anything by this author since, so I'm keen to give this a go and see if I like it just as much as I enjoyed The X Talk. As for what this book's about, the Goodreads profile says Chandler Cohen has never felt more like the ghost in Ghost Rider until she attends a signing for a book she wrote, and the author doesn't even recognize her. The evening turns more promising when she meets a charming man at the bar and immediately connects with him, but when all their sexual tension culminates in a spectacularly awkward hookup, she decides this is one night better off forgotten. Unfortunately, that's easier said than done. Her next project is ghostwriting a memoir for Finn Walsh, a C-list actor best known for playing a lovable nerd on a cult classic werewolf show who now makes a living at fan conventions across the country. But Chandler knows him better from their one-night stand of hilarious mishaps. Chandler's determined to keep their partnership as professional as possible, but when she admits to Finn their night together wasn't as mind-blowing as he thought it was, he's distraught. He intrigues her enough that they strike a deal. When they're not working on his book, Chandler will school Finn in the art of satisfaction. As they grow closer both in and out of the bedroom, they must figure out which is more important, business or pleasure, or if there's a way for them to have both. That sounds super saucy, super spicy, and it sounds like a lot of fun. Next up, on the 18th of July, we've got A Soul of Ash and Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which will be the latest book in the From Blood and Ash series. This isn't a series that I'm absolutely obsessed with, really enjoying. I think it's just one that I keep compulsively reading because I'm kind of intrigued to see how the relationship's going to turn out after some events in the latest book, The War of Two Queens. As for what the series is about, it follows Poppy, who is a maiden, never to be seen, never to be looked at, never to be touched, never to experience pleasure. She's been sort of protected by the court that she lives in because she's supposed to be sort of working towards her 18th birthday, I think, where she's supposed to experience some kind of ascension where essentially she'll be able to ensure the success and the future of the entire race that she's a part of, which are like vampires. But then she meets and slowly starts to have feelings for the man who is her bodyguard, I guess, supposed to ensure that she never has any connections with anyone, and he really starts to tempt her, and I think his name is Hawk, and he really opens her eyes to the truth of her position, the truth of what the ascension means for her, and the truth of a battle with the gods and the vampires and everything else that she had no idea even existed. It is interesting when explained, but then the content of the book is like 99% sex, like 1% plot, to the point where I actually really enjoyed, I think, the latest book for the fact that the two main characters didn't actually have a lot of time together in the book, and that made a lot of like plot things happen outside of it, which made the book feel really fast-paced and fun. So I'm hoping that lessons were learned from that book so that this next book focuses a bit more on the plot and the battle and everything like that, and a little bit less on all the sex scenes. Next up, we've got A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie Irwin, which is coming out on the 20th of June 2023, and this one I have the first book, A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting, but I haven't read it. But I heard it's very like Bridgerton-esque, very fun, very, you know, Regency romance. So I am still eagerly anticipating the second one, and I'm determined to read the first one soon so that I can jump straight into the next one. As for what it's about, the Goodreads profile says, when shy Miss Eliza Balfour married the austere Earl of Somerset, 20 years her senior, it was the match of the season, no matter that he was not the husband Eliza would have chosen. But 10 years later, Eliza is widowed, and at 8 and 20 years, she is suddenly left titled, rich, and for the first time in her life, utterly in control of her own future. Instead of living out her mourning quietly, Eliza heads to Bath with her cousin Margaret. After years of living according to everyone else's rules, Eliza has resolved at last to do as she wants. But when the ripples of the Dowager Lady Somerset's behaviour reach the new Lord Somerset, whom Eliza knew once as a younger woman, Eliza is forced to confront the fact that freedom does not come without consequences, though it also brings unexpected opportunities. So it sounds messy and saucy and I can't wait. This next one is the only kind of wild card on this list in that I have no idea what to expect. I've never read anything by this author, and I have never, like, this isn't a part of a series that I'm enjoying or anything like that. It's literally a book that I saw on the list on Goodreads of books coming out soon, and I was just like, that sounds incredible. So this one is called The Blonde Identity. It's by Ali Carter, and it's expected to come out on the 8th of August. As for what it's about, the Goodreads profile says, a fast-paced, hilarious road trip rom-com about a woman with amnesia who discovers she's the identical twin sister of a rogue spy and must team up with a rugged, grumpy operative to stay alive. It's the middle of the night in the middle of Paris, and a woman just woke up with no memory. She knows only 3 things for certain. 1, she has a splitting headache. 2, the hottest guy she has probably ever seen is standing over her, telling her to run. And oh yeah, 3, people keep trying to kill her. She doesn't know who or why, but when she sees footage of herself fighting off a dozen men, there's only one explanation. Obviously, she's a spy. Except, according to Mr. Hot Guy, she's not. She's a spy's identical twin sister. Too bad the only person who knows she's not the woman they're looking for is the very grouchy, very sexy, very secret agent who, reluctantly, agrees to help her disappear. That's easier said than done when a criminal organization wants you dead and every intelligence service in the world wants you caught. Luckily, no one is looking for a pair of lovesick newlyweds on their honeymoon, and soon they're lying their way across Europe, dodging bullets and faking kisses as they race to unravel a deadly conspiracy and clear her sister's name. But with every secret they uncover, the truth shifts, until she no longer knows who to trust. The twins she can't remember, or the mysterious man she can't let herself forget. I mean, tell me that doesn't sound amazing. I will die on this hill. That sounds so interesting. I love the whole twin thing. I love the whole fake dating marriage thing. It just sounds like it's going to be a wild ride. Next up, we've got Just Another Missing Person by Gillian McAllister. I've looked it up and it doesn't say specifically when it's expected to be published. It just says it's in June. And for this one, I was obsessed with Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. She is now like an auto-buy author for me because of that book. So of course, when I found out there was a second one coming out in June, it's immediately added to my list. As for what it's about, the Goodreads profile says Olivia, 22 years old, no history of running away, last seen on CCTV entering a dead-end alley, and not coming back out again. Missing for 1 day and counting. Julia is the detective heading up the case. She knows what to expect, a desperate family, a ticking clock, and long hours away from her daughter. But Julia has no idea how close to home it's going to get, because her family's safety depends on one thing. Julia must not find out what happened to Olivia, and must frame somebody else for her murder. What would you do? I mean, oh, chills. That sounds so good. And lastly, we've got The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson, which is expected to come out on the 6th of June. And this one is one that is very, very recently added to the list because I just finished Her Majesty's Royal Coven by this author. Loved it, thought it was incredible, and immediately need to put the sequel on my list. As for what Her Majesty's Royal Coven is about, it follows 4 witches who, when they were little, they created their own little coven, I guess, within the prevalent coven in England, which is Her Majesty's Royal Coven, aka HMRC. And the story really follows them a number of years after they've all gone their own way, they've all split apart, they've all followed very, very different paths, grown up very, very differently, have very, very different values, and it follows them coming back together and reconciling their differences and figuring out how to create this sort of familial almost unit again with the threat of the sullied child and the rise of the devil essentially at their doorstep. This sullied child is a child that one of the women in the coven takes on and sort of becomes a mother for, and it really creates this very interesting conflict between her and a number of the other members of the coven. It's got really interesting conversations around gender and sexual identity, and it tells this beautiful story of acceptance and finding your family, and it was incredible. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars, so of course I can't wait for the sequel on the 6th of June. Anyway, those are the 10 books that I am most anticipating going into the summer of 2023. Fingers crossed I actually make a dent in this list compared to the previous one where I think I read like 3 or 4 of the 15 or something books that I picked for myself. We'll see how we go, and I will check in with you guys at the end of summer with another On the Hook to Read the Book video. But in the meantime, do let me know in the comments down below if you've made a list for yourself of the books that you are most anticipating coming out over the next couple of months, and let me know if any of these books are on that list for you or what else is on your list, so maybe I can get some inspiration from you guys and pick up a few extras. Come and chat to me in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys, and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It's a super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!